Okay, so in the last lesson, we talked about taking our major scale, applying all the power chords, and then being able to take that and move it into different keys. So now what we're going to do is take a little different approach where you're going to be able to see patterns within these power chords. Will make it a little bit more easier when you're just jamming, you're on the fly. A little bit more difficult if you got to think a whole half, oh, just do a diagonal and a whole half. You got to do all that thinking. That you don't want to be doing that when you're creating, you're just jamming. You need to see some really quick patterns, and that's what we're going to cover in this lesson. So bring the camera down and let's take a look. Okay, so we're going to start out by focusing in the key of G. It's just a nice place to do it because we can see the whole pattern right here in the middle of the neck. So before we went, and here's our starting point. We have one whole step, two whole steps. Then we over half step, which gave us our diagonal. Over another half step, and we had one whole step, two whole steps, three whole steps. And then you could go over a half step to start it all over again. What we're going to do here is we are now going to look at these as single patterns. We have it's going to be a pattern of 3, our diagonal, and a pattern of 3. So you're going to be able to see these very easily. We have our first set right here. Normally, like in the last lesson, we would have to, this would be our starting point. Then we have to go up a whole step. That'd be one whole step, two whole steps. So this is basically 1 and 2. And that's because we were thinking about whole steps. We can't, for not moving anywhere, we didn't move a whole step. In this one now, we're not thinking of moving in any particular distance, whole steps, half steps, or anything. Although, well, we will be, when we go over here, we're going to talk about going up a half step, but we're going to talk about this as a set. So here, this is normally the starting point. This is going to be our first set of power chords on the E and A. The first set out of our group of 3. Then we go up to this one right here. Here's a second set. And then here's our third set. And these are all located a whole step apart. This is basically one whole step and two whole steps. There's 1, 2, 3. Then we go up our half step. There's our diagonal. Go over a half step again. And guess what? We have 1, 2, 3. Not so different on this side than before where we were started here. This is actually where we would go up whole half. We went up to this particular chord, we went up a whole step, so we counted that as 1. So this really was 1 whole step, 2 whole step, 3 whole step. So all we're doing here that's different is instead of calling it a whole step, this is just our first set. 1, 2, 3. So we got 1, 2, 3. Over half steps is our diagonal. Over to the next fret, but we're going to start an E string. 1, 2, 3. So again, 3, diagonal, 3. And that's going to be really easy to see. And then we can pick any other chord. Let's do A flat. Because again, you can do those flat keys, sharp keys, whatever. It doesn't have to be A, B, C, D, so forth. Even though those are the sharp keys, mainly is A, B, C, D, E, and F is actually a flat key, but we can use F sharp and then G. But don't worry about that right now. So we're going to do A flat here. 1, 2, 3. Over half steps diagonal. Over another half step, we got 1, 2, 3. There you go. There's our chords in the key of A flat. Now, it's not all the chords. We'll talk about that in another lesson, but we want to get used to this pattern. So let's pick another one. Let's do F sharp. So there's 1, 2, 3. Over half step. over another half step. 1, 2, 3. And there you go. There are your power chords in the key of F sharp. Now, we can do this simply in reverse too, because you're not always going to be going up. You're going to also be going back down. So we got 1, 2, 3. Now, to keep things less confusing, instead of like trying to jump over to here and do this that way, just think of in this particular instance, we're going to go do this a little bit backwards, where we're going to E string, A string. Now we're just going to move down a half step and go A string to our E string in the diagonal. Again, let me bring this back down again. We're on F sharp, I think. Okay, so yeah, 1, 2, 3, down a half step, do a diagonal in reverse, down half step, 1, 2, 3. So yes, go up your power chords, you know, in those patterns of 3, diagonal, 3, but also go in reverse. So let's go back to G for a second. We got 1, 2, 3, over half step, diagonal, and then over half step, starting to E, 1, 2, 3. Now do it backwards, 1, 2, 3, over half step, I'm going to do diagonal reverse, over half step, 1, 2, 3. So went up and go back down. So that's what you want to do. You want to get that down pretty well, but you really need to apply this musically just so you get used to it. Now, when you have these whole steps right here, the 3 sets, you know, 3 sets of chords. You know, they are whole steps, but we're thinking this is 3 sets of chords in our group of 3. You jamming through these. This is pretty easy. You know, when you see these 3 sets. It's just really easy. It's just all nice and linear. Where it's going to throw you off is when you go over half step and do the diagonal. That's where it's going to get a little confusing. So what you need to do is you want to jam on this, but really make sure you incorporate this diagonal in there, because that's going to be where you're really going to need to really work on and get this down really well. So make some progressions, but make sure you include that. You know, if not every single time, at least most of the time, make sure you include that diagonal in there, because that's what's going to throw you off. You know, you just start jamming it. Yeah, and you just jam, do whatever, you know. Just make sure, yeah, just jam a lot in that little area, because that's going to be the area that's going to throw you off. And then yeah, then you can get used to it. Don't forget to, you know, I was doing a little bit over here and some over here, try to make some bigger jumps, and but again, trying to come over here and land in this area, because the more you do this, because at first you're going to have to really think about it, but the more you do this, you kind of start in a smaller area. You get used to that. It's going to become second nature. You're not going to have to really think about it a lot. And then as you widen it up, you make bigger jumps. Then at first you're going to really need to think about it. But as time goes by, you're just going to automatically see these patterns no matter where you go. You know, it's just training your brain to see these patterns. So that's what I want you to do here. 2 things. One is to just take that pattern, just pick any old key, you know, start in any root note, go up your 3 diagonal, 3, and then do it in reverse. 3 diagonal in reverse, and then 3 down. You want to do a whole bunch of those, but the second part of it is jamming those. If it's easier, you can pick a couple keys that you're more familiar with, you know, G or F or whatever you want to do. But at some point, you know, as you go along, or actually right off the bat, make sure you try at least some other ones that are, you know, besides your favorite ones. You want to just be able to see those patterns no matter what key you're jumping in. So, yeah, that's it for this lesson. This might take you a bit to get down really well, but just take your time and get this down. If you get confused, go back and watch this video again. And plus, there'll be PDFs that you'll be able to check out too. They'll hopefully help out. So there you go. There's this lesson. Have any questions after that, then yeah, let me know and I'll help you out. Otherwise, we'll see you in the next one. All right, see you then.